someone runs into the poker room and is like, there's people with guns, and that created what I call the human tsunami, right? That's what you saw the video footage of. What is this mass wave of panic as people are trying to run out and flipping over tables.
It's the PokerNews Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the PokerNews Podcast. I'm Chad Holloway at Level 9 Studio in Las Vegas, joined by Mike Holtz, Ben Naldo, and returning as special guest James Hartigan, the voice of PokerStars EPT.
Thank you very much. You keep inviting me back. I'm honored. I'm thrilled. Great to be here.
You make it so easy because this is kind of what you do for a living. I mean, you do commentating, but you had a Poker in the Ears podcast with
That's true.
States.
I mean, I've been talking into a microphone, good God, for like more than 30 years now, whether it's been as a radio presenter, as a podcast host, or as a poker commentator.
Right.
So yeah, you can basically just become a toy. Just wind me up, let me go, and I'll just spew.
Fantastic. Mike and I won't say a word.
We're going to have a fun episode in which we discuss your favorite EPT moments. I asked you to come up with 5.
You did.
And I know you put some effort and thought into it, which is exciting.
A whole 10 minutes, Chad. No,
that's more than these guys, twice as much as these guys put in effort.
Well, I just typed into Chat GPT and let it figure it out for me, you know?
Well, the weird thing is I have been around the EPT pretty much since its inception because I was involved with the EPT as a player in season 1. And have worked on the EPT since its 3rd season.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been around the tour for 2 decades, for 20 years. So in completing your kind of task, I wanted to look at moments that kind of ticked the box in terms of like through the years, but also moments that were very personal to me. So maybe not, when you have like the top 5 EPT moments on a YouTube compilation video, aren't necessarily like the biggest hands, the most famous winners, or the kind of, but stuff that I guess my personal journey with this tour. So I did them in chronological order. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I'm terrible at trying to rank stuff. So
with me.
So yeah, so number 1, and it's I guess the moment is the final table of EPT Deauville 2005.
Okay.
Because this was the first EPT I got to go to as an invited guest of PokerStars. This is back when I was a radio presenter, and they basically were inviting journalists to come and have the experience of going to an EPT, playing an EPT, and just a quick kind of summary of my tournament journey. I made it to day 2. On the day 2 of the tournament, I knocked out some French idiot who I later discovered was called Elke. And apparently he was a big deal in the online world at the time.
I thought he was Korean. No.
And in the StarCraft streets, of course. But I didn't know he was. But did not advance beyond day 2. But the reason why this is so memorable is not only was it the first EPT I got to go to, not only was it my opportunity to meet the people from PokerStars, which would later lead to a screen test to be a poker commentator, but I was there in the stands for the final table. When you see that final table, which features a very young Justin Bonomo, who I think was only 18 or 19 at the time, and you see Brandon Schaefer win his EPT title, I am there. There is a younger, I was never young, but there is a younger James Hartigan in the stands, inappropriately drinking beer, chatting to John Gale, the late great John Gale, chatting to Luca Pagano, who had been eliminated in 8th place from that final table. And so that was, I think, my first ever appearance on TV.
Wow.
Because I'd always worked in radio, never done TV. So the first time you will see my face on TV is sat in the stands of that final table at EPT Deauville 2005, which was followed by an insane after party, which I only have selective memory of.
Those are the best.
And the memories I have, I cannot share on this podcast.
No,
But it was,
there
used to be a nightclub underneath the casino in Deauville called Regine's. And they only sold 2 drinks. You could order a bottle of champagne, or you could drink Desperados, which you have to be desperate to drink. It's beer with a shot of tequila in it. Right?
Oh, baby.
And I think it was like 25 euros a bottle. This was an expensive nightclub, right?
Oh my God.
But this was back in 2005. You know what it was like in 2005. The money in poker was... So someone put their credit card behind the bar. So I had far too many bottles of Desperados. Tequila is my kryptonite. And then someone was ordering bottles of champagne. So the night, I was going to say escalated, but probably went the other direction very, very, very fast.
Yeah.
I want to ask, because you mentioned it your first time on TV, even if it was in the background.
Yeah.
Question to you guys. I remember mine, which I'll share quick and give you guys a second to think about it if you have been or if you know. But like mine was me and my buddy that I grew up with went to a wrestling event. And we made signs because back then you didn't have cell phones and people weren't always taking.
Yeah,
so we actually made signs, and I had a Brett the Hitman Hart sign that I held up, and the camera, when we watched it back, had zoomed in on it and
cool.
then zoomed out, and there's me and my buddy, there for 5 seconds. Yeah, but we always remember it. In 1999, I think that was. So
nice.
My TV debut, if you will.
Mine's like 2007 World Series of Video Gaming. I played World of Warcraft, and they aired like an hour-long special on CBS, I think, or ABC, like Sunday at noon. And it aired one time. My mom got to watch it while I was flying back, and then they never aired it again. Can't find it anywhere. But there was like a little interview where like
your mom promises you were on TV.
I
I swear, sweetie, you were there.
Dude, they put makeup on us and everything. It was
really?
It was crazy. Yeah, it was like 5 of us doing like a little interview about World of Warcraft. Really cool, I bet.
I think mine was my mugshot for robbing a liquor store. No, I think I think I've only been on a couple poker streams on TV, and then the first time I was actually ever maybe the only time I've ever been on TV was there was like a snow day in Cincinnati where I grew up, and me and my friends were like sledding on some place you're not supposed to sled, and then the TV crew came over and was like, "How are you liking your snow day?" I was like, "It's good. I like not going to school." So that's probably it. I think that's
Do
it.
you still have a VHS tape of this TV?
I'm sure my mother does.
Yeah.
She saved everything, so bless
Ben
her.
was actually the I Like Turtles kid as well.
I wish. I like turtles. Yeah.
As I mentioned, having met the Stars team in Deauville, I then screen tested and started. My first gig as a poker commentator was May 2005. So I've now been doing this job for more than 20 years, which is both impressive and depressing in equal measure.
And not sorry to interrupt. Just one.
No.
Were you playing a lot of poker before that first event you played in Deauville?
I mean, yes, but just home games.
Okay.
And I was kind of like,
but that wasn't like throwing into the fire. Like, here you go, first time.
No. And they were specifically, they didn't want to necessarily. So I'll give you an example of one of the other people who was given that opportunity at the time. Was Howard Swains, who was working, I think, for the Times newspaper at the time. And again, they were looking for journalists who knew the game, understood the game, and were enthusiastic about the game. If they're going to buy them into, a decent buy-in tournament, they want to make sure that they're not just. I knew enough, and I was kind of crushing sit and goes on Ladbrokes Poker, I think, at the time, and just playing home games. Probably. Way worse than I thought I was at the time, but it was a lot easier to win back then.
Yeah. I was crushing home games or sit and goes in Spanish class at that time. And I don't remember any Spanish.
But weirdly, even I never ever had any desire to kind of try and work my way up through the stakes or become a professional player. Never had that desire. To me, it was always something I enjoyed doing. It was always a hobby. It was always a fun activity. And to then have the opportunity to kind of combine that with the professional side was awesome. And so the World Cup of Poker 2005 was my kind of like the first gig I did. And then I did it again a year later. And just again, as so many things in life, just luck is a factor or outside influences are a factor. We get into kind of the autumn of 2006, and it's the season 3 of the EPT is starting. And Colin Murray, who had been the host and lead commentator on the EPT for the first 2 seasons, Colin was becoming mainstream famous and in demand. He was doing more soccer on TV. He was doing more radio work.
It's actually called football.
On 5. Look, I pander to you assholes and I get called out for it. Great. It's also a bit. You'll know from the live stream.
Yeah.
I insist on calling it soccer because it pisses off so many people.
Great engagement.
This. Yeah.
Clickbait.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're all here for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But also, it's like, it's practical. You say soccer, everyone knows what you're talking
Exactly.
about.
Yeah.
You say football, you're going to confuse people. Anywho, football, match of the day 2, whatever. He was in demand. And so, like, I think he'd realized that he could not, in all good measure, continue. So they said, right, Colin can do half of the events, but we need someone to do the other half of the events. And so they were being very coy, but I was asked to come to EPT London in 2006 and do a screen test as the new kind of EPT TV commentator.
Yeah, we got to see that screen test.
Well, it made it into the TV show.
Oh, excellent.
So it's basically just a piece to camera at the event going, I'm not Colin Murray, I'm James Hartigan, and I'm going to be guiding you through this London EPT. They used it in the show as my kind of like introduction.
As always on the European Poker Tour, it's been hot stuff from the start. By the way, Colin hasn't lost his Irish accent and gained a pair of glasses. I'm James Hartigan, pleased to be with you on the EPT, calling the action here in London.
One-hit wonder.
The very first EPT I got to do with John Duffy was the EPT the Victoria Coren won at Home Casino.
Wow.
And so that's memory number 2 is EPT as a player, EPT as a TV presenter, commentator, and the first female champion, a very popular winner with mainstream crossover. Make no mistake, back in 2006, Vicky was not as well known in the UK. She was more of a newspaper writer than TV presenter, which, you know, she later became, but was a very popular winner with the UK crowd.
Sure.
And, you know, obviously then went on to have a partnership of her own with PokerStars, and that was a great TV series to kind of kick things off with.
Yeah.
And, you know, have very fond memories of that one. Fast forward 8 years, memory number 3, and I know it's an obvious one, and this is one when you are ranking top 5 EPT moments, this one would be on most people's list, was Vicky winning her second.
I knew this was
EPT.
coming because I was there as well.
Yeah.
And I would rank that just from my experiences of special moments that I've been at in poker history. It was like, I'll let you tell, I want to hear your side too, but it was.
Is she still the only 2-time winner?
No, there have been a few since.
There have been,
a few since, but she was the first.
Yeah. And for a long time, that was it.
Yeah, for a fair few years. I think the second was Nikolai Pobal, and that happened in Prague in 2019.
Oh, okay.
So for 5 years.
And that was post the like EPT like ending and then coming back.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Correct. So what was weird is that it became a story, it became a narrative, it became a jinx that, you know, we'd had 10 years of the EPT and still no 2-time winner. And, you know, look everywhere else, like the WPT had multiple 2-time winners, multiple, what did, I think Gus Hansen had 4 or 5 by that point, right?
Won like 3 in the first season or something crazy.
And to be fair, I mean, I know now there's only 4 or 5 a year, but like you look at 2012, 2013, there were like 14 or 15 EPTs. So it was kind of weird. And also the fact that so many people had come so close, the fact that it nearly happened in the very first season. You had Ram Vaswani win EPT Dublin.
That's a name I haven't heard in a minute.
I know, right? And the very next stop of the EPT is Copenhagen, and Ram Vaswani is heads up against Noah Buchan, but finishes second.
Noah Buchan, also still around.
Yeah. Brandon Schaefer, I mentioned, he won Deauville in season 1. He's then heads up against Rob Hollink in Monte Carlo that same year. So there were so many nearlies, but no one had ever done it. And I think when we got down to like the last 32 in San Remo, I mean, I'd have to go back to the PokerNews updates to basically see who was still in. But I think there were like 8 or 9 former EPT champs. And we're looking at people like Mike McDonald or someone like Elkin. It's like, okay, and Vicky was like 32 of 32. And I remember saying, you know, well, ain't going to be Vicky, is it?
Yeah.
And yet every day she's still in, right? But she was always bottom of the chip count. She was 16 of 16. She was 8 of 8. But she did it. And at the point when we were 3 or 4 handed, or when she started to kind of become the chip leader and you realized the 2-time is on, word was getting out there. And what was incredible is there were people watching the live stream who were either friends of Vicky's, people who knew who Vicky was from her TV work, but didn't necessarily know poker. They knew this was a big deal, that she was about to win something huge and potentially make history, but didn't necessarily understand what the hell was going on. Yeah. So we had this really weird job to do where you're talking to a hardcore poker audience, because that's who watches live streams, ladies and gentlemen. So they are expecting analysis. They're expecting not to be patronized. But at the same time, you've got to start explaining what the dealer button and the blinds are to people who are watching this game for the first time.
Sure.
Chat was slightly different that day. What am I watching?
Yeah.
It was. But
are there jokers in this?
And it's really weird because you don't want to piss off either audience, right? You want to make sure you're not alienating people who are watching poker for the first time, but equally you want to make sure you're not kind of condescending or annoying the people who go like, yes, I know that a straight beats 3 of a kind. So, but, and then of course the realization that, you know, she's on the cusp of doing it. The hand which, you know, arguably I kind of went to 11 and beyond. I was a little bit, and there was nothing objective about that commentary whatsoever.
Yeah.
With apologies to Giacomo Fondero, the Italian guy who came second. No one was on your side. And we were very much Team Vicky at that point because it was such a huge thing for her. She was someone who I knew personally, and it was an achievement that we've been waiting for more than 10 years at that point.
It was such an infectious atmosphere. Like you said, I remember being in the media room. Everybody was wondering. The only thing I can really compare it to, and it might have even been more, to be honest, was all this. Is a female going to make the final table of the WSOP? Right?
Same jinx, yeah.
And then you tie in Vicky's affiliation with PokerStars. Everybody was rooting for her there, and so when she did win, it was just this huge celebration. They literally brought champagne into the media room and insisted that we all partake. It was a very special moment.
I'm sure Chad really put up a high fight for that.
And of course, by this point, she'd done so many TV shows. She was hosting Only Connect. She was married to David Mitchell, who was there to congratulate her in the winning moment. So it was just, and I listened back and when I listen to that moment, it's part of me cringes, but the emotion was genuine. Yeah. The excitement and also the kind of the voice cracking, it was real. There's nothing fake in that. So it's kind of I own it. So that was, a special moment. And, I still hear those words because it's still in the EPT titles on the live stream and on TV to this day. And, I like the fact that we've had moments like that genuinely mean something, that are the equivalent of some of the kind of great sporting calls. So that's number 3. Number 4 is I think the reason I chose this one is because it's just witnessing the birth of a GOAT, or realizing or realizing this is someone who we're going to be seeing again and again. So this is a year after Vicky won San Remo. We find ourselves in Monte Carlo in 2015, and en route to the final table, it may have been at the final table, we find Johnny Lodden, who is one of those players who's had a lot of success on the EPT. But
this is Monte Carlo, you said?
This is Monte Carlo.
I remember
and
this.
And Johnny Lodden has always come close but missed out. And he's at the final table. He finds himself in a hand against a young Spanish player called Adrian Mateos.
I was wondering where you were going, and that's who I had in mind.
And now, Mateos at this point is a known quantity, right? Because this is 6 months after he's won the World Series of Poker Europe. So he's already had a huge score. He's already had a huge win at the age of 18. Crazy. He is still 18 at the final table of Monte Carlo. And he played this hand against Johnny Lodden, where he bluffs Johnny Lodden off pocket fives. Again, it's one of this is legitimately one of those hands which features in top 5 compilations. And you realize it's a great hand. It's a great play. It tilts Lodden beyond belief because he shows him the bluff on the river.
Legend.
And the chip leader shoves on Lodden.
Oh, boy. Calling here and being right is the kind of thing legends are made of, but calling here and being wrong is so stupid and obvious that when you do it, you pretty much die of shame. I think this is a super easy fold, but for some reason, Johnny doesn't agree with me. Johnny knows just how aggressive Mateos has been. I can't even imagine the amount of dynamic and leveling that has been going on for Johnny to be even thinking about calling here.
Clearly a tough decision for him.
Now that Johnny's so suspicious, I kind of want him to call.
Johnny folds. Mateos shows a bluff, jack high!
Oh, you didn't have to show it.
Sykt ikke stola på instinktene, skal ha blikksynet. Jævla dårlig.
And Mateos goes on to win, and you realize this is someone, you just have that inkling. It's not just the fact that he's won 2 7-figure scores in a 6-month period. People do that. People go on heaters. We've seen that. Longevity and the ability to keep going and the ability to move up in stakes and beat the best of the game at the high stakes in the game, that doesn't come around that often. And I firmly believe that it's very difficult to say who is the best. he's in the conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If we're talking about who are the best tournament players in the world, he should be in the conversation. He is definitely in the top 10, probably in the top 5. And I very much felt that we were there at the beginning. We saw the birth of the Adrian Mateos that we now know as a tough opponent who can play a hand like that, but also can get maximum value when he has it. And just now crushes super high rollers, crushes big field tournaments. The World Series main event.
Yeah.
He's had some huge deep runs in that
He made
as
some
well.
absurd laydowns in that too. That were just.
I think if you were to do like a fantasy draft and like I have to draft a poker player, I think I draft Adrian Mateos number 1 overall.
It's like no limit hold'em tournaments. Drop him into anything, whether it's a 500 or 100K. I take him.
You're talking about no limit.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
of course.
But,
But I mean,
And again, it's one of my frustrations is seeing. I think it was in 2023. Forgive me if I've got the year wrong. When he was making a deep run in the World Series main.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And the fact that he was not getting the screen time, he was not getting the love that he deserved because maybe he was not as well known to a US audience at that time.
Did he make a deep run last year, or am I tripping?
Yeah. I mean, he's done it at least 2 times in the last 3 or 4 years. But yeah, I that's special to me because it's witnessing someone at the start of their career as a very young player who has proved that he has the longevity, has just got better and better and better, and just put up result kind of since. And last, and by no means least, and again, maybe these aren't just personal moments. Maybe these are genuinely objective, great.
I was going to
EPT
say,
moments.
these are some good objective ones.
Solid.
It's, I guess, the opposite of the Mateos moment. It's seeing someone who was due, and that was Barny Boatman in EPT Paris.
Barny
now,
B.
the reason why this one is personal to me is Barny Boatman is one of the very first poker players I ever met and spoke to, because when I was still a civilian, before I worked in the poker industry, I was on a little-known TV show that was on the Poker Channel in the UK.
Oh.
That's right. The UK had a
Poker Channel?
Yeah, we had on cable TV, there was a channel called the Poker Channel.
Well, I know.
And they had a show called Barney's Home Games, where 1/4 of the Hendon mob, Barny Boatman, and bear in mind at this point, like in 2004, 2005, the Hendon mob were like heroes of everyone who was in UK poker. And again, the Vicky was a hero of mine from late night poker, because we had late night poker before you guys had the WPT.
Yeah.
Late night poker came onto Channel 4 in 1999. That's when we had, you know, Hold'em tournaments with hole cards. So these were genuine heroes, and like, wow, Barny Boatman is going to people's home games and playing in them. So of course, you know, on the Hendon Mob forum, which is where you had to apply, there was a dedicated thread there to say, yeah, I have a home game in Putney. Barny Boatman can come to my home game, and he did. And they came and filmed Barny playing in the home game with my friends.
Sick.
And so, you know, I still have the DVD somewhere. And over the years, obviously, I've seen Barny in my professional capacity when we'd stayed in touch, and he still had very fond memories of making that TV show, of playing in that game. So to then, near enough 20 years later,
crazy,
have Barny become the oldest EPT champion.
Yeah, and when poker is at its like hardest and, you know, hardest to win tournaments.
And I remember when Barny won his first World Series bracelet, which I think was 10 years before that, and that felt kind of like, you know, a huge thing. And to then win an EPT for a 7-figure score was huge. Yeah. And again, to see how much it meant to him for that achievement and that kind of, you know, just another thing to put on a glowing, and what a popular winner he is, because again, there's a lot of people out there who maybe were or are poker heroes who maybe we know kind of like maybe aren't what you think they are, or maybe
we
they
never talk about those people.
Maybe they project an image publicly that isn't. But no, you could not say that about Barny. He is a genuinely great guy, nice guy, great ambassador for the game of poker. Couldn't have been happier for him. And the fact that we did an interview straight afterwards on the set, straight after he won, and obviously we talked about the fact that we'd known each other for all this time, and what an honor it was for me to have him come to my home game for his TV show, to then all those years later be the guy who's calling his win in, like, you know, in a tournament that clearly meant the world to him.
I feel like sometimes there feels like a separation between, you know, Europe and international kind of markets and players, and then, you know, the American markets and players. And that was one that for sure transcended, where like everyone was talking about Barny Boatman winning an EPT.
Right. Yes.
Like
and
that
he
was
played amazing too.
Oh,
like
yeah.
the sickest bluffs. Like,
I think he won final table performance of the year over Scott Stewart, which was,
he did. We
a bit.
were there.
We were there.
We were there.
The huge hand, which I think was the kind of beginning of his kind of like, winner's journey, was the huge hand against Eric Afriat, right? Where he calls him with the pair of jacks, and Afriat then goes into uber tilt mode.
Yeah, one of the most miserable human beings in poker, by the way.
So here's the thing. I mean, again,
he is. Everyone knows it.
I try to be as objective as I possibly can.
Mike doesn't. No, I mean, again, I'm talking about as a commentator rather than necessarily as a poker pundit. But crucially, if you act like a petulant child at the table and abuse time bank cards, I am going to call you out for it.
Yeah.
He did not take kindly for that. And apparently, like, his wife had told him what I'd said on the live stream. And for the rest of that event, he was looking for me because he wanted to have words. And I'm like,
I've been there.
I'm sorry. If you are going to act like a douche, you're going to get called out for acting like a douche.
Yeah.
One of the only I wanted to ask if you were there, because I'm not surprised it's not on the list because it's probably not a fond memory, but were you there in Berlin?
Yes. I was there in Berlin.
09, 10 or something like that?
2010.
2010?
Yeah.
The robbery.
The robbery, yeah.
Yeah. I was there.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I was there. It was, again, we're never going to put that on your list of favorite EPT memories.
No.
But I mean, we were in a weird place. So this was, we had all of the commentators on site because, the EPT streams in multiple languages. Yeah. So we're all kind of like sat in a weird little row. There's like, I think it was me and Nick Wealthall were doing the English commentary, sat next to our French team, our Spanish team. We had the Russian commentators there as well. And we were on a balcony, which was overlooking the main lobby area. And the main lobby area was where the actual robbery took place.
Shit.
Perfect
And
viewing.
I know. We're sat down. We're looking.
I don't
at
mean
screens.
to make jokes about this either. I'm sure it was crazy in the moment.
So from our perspective, from my perspective, what had happened is someone in our team had looked down and was white as a sheet and said, "I've seen someone with a weapon down there." And then the next thing we know is what's happened is someone runs into the poker room and is like, There's people with guns, and that created what I call the human tsunami, right? That's what you saw the video footage of.
Yeah.
What is this mass wave of panic as people are trying to run out and flipping over tables? And we were kind of like, what do we do? And Alex Kravchenko, do you remember him?
Of course.
Was doing commentary at the time, and he was like, "Follow me." And we're kind of like, this seemed like a very logical thing to do. And he literally led us down the fire escape and out the building. Because at this point, we did not know what was going on. You don't know if it's a robbery or something even more sinister than that.
Sure.
All we knew is get out the building.
Yeah.
Get out the building.
Kravchenko's like, this happens in Russia.
Yeah.
I know what to do.
It was a very, very unfortunate situation. I think what's good is that you learn the lessons of that in terms of how important security is at any event where you're handling money. And, fortunately, we can look at most live poker events and say without incident since.
Yeah.
And also fortunate that we were able to restart the EPT main event, recover. There were some events which, of course, had to be cancelled for obvious reasons, but we were able to continue the EPT main event, continue playing, and that was a wild one for sure.
Wow.
Well, James, I appreciate you taking the time to share some of your favorite memories and to talk about the robbery. I'm sure there are going to be many more memories coming for you in the EPT and players as well. I want to get back on I traveled the EPT for about 6 years.
Yeah.
Nonstop, had a blast. The venues, the players, the history of that tour. I really appreciate it. I learned stuff that I didn't know about you and stories that you've shared here too, which I thought was pretty cool.
No, any time. This is the weird thing is that some of those stories are kind of like have been deliberately repressed. Some of them kind of like come back to me in the moment. There are so many more that I could talk about, especially the stuff away from the tables. Because when you've been doing something for 20 years, there's just so much has happened, as you know, from every event. But crucially, and this is the reason I still love doing the job, is that, you still have moments like Barney's win. You still have specific hands, specific situations that you've never seen before. That is the gift of poker, is every time you see something that you've never seen before, it's the gift that keeps on giving. And that's why I know that there will be more moments to talk about in the years to come.
Well, I propose we do part 2 over some Guinness in Ireland.
There you go.
Just saying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of the Poker News Podcast. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, give us that 5-star review. I'm Chad Holloway, Mike Holtz, Ben Ludlow, and our guest, James Hartigan from Level 9 Studio. We will be back next week with a new episode. And until then, we'll keep a seat open for you.